Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm joined by.
Joseph Robicheaux, Yesezi Bonga.
Excellent, man. Hey, man, it's good to have you on the channel. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, so today we're going to talk about Vodou and some of the spirits in Vodou. But first of all, how did you get into your practices? How did you kind of start on this path?
So, I was about probably 15 or 16. I've been studying witchcraft and the usual kind of available stuff. And, I was trying to find something that, resonated more with me. And I kept on thinking in the back of my mind, I'd heard of Vodou and heard of, of these different things, but I had never really read anything that talked about it in great detail. And I remember I was at a bookstore, and I was looking in the New Age section, and all of a sudden there's this book that literally fell off of the shelf in front of me, and it was a Vodou book, right? And it was and I thought to myself, if I don't take this now, I don't know when the next time I'll ever come back to this kind of crossroads again. So I bought it, and it was it's kind of crazy because the witchcraft people that I was hanging out with, they told me, way a while back that, witchcraft isn't evil, isn't this the other thing, it's just how people perceive it, right? But I was so shocked to find that these people also perceived this thing as being evil, right? And so that drove me to want to know more about it, and here I am.
Excellent. Yeah, man. It's funny because I think that the book that I first started with was Riding with the Loa by Kinaz Filan.
That was the book, yeah.
Was that the book?
That was the book, yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's the book that because that book, it felt like it got a little bit more in depth, and it got down to how you actually work with them. Because there's like you mentioned before, there's always the general tropes, this is their color, this is their offering. But when you really get into the understanding, that's when you get attached to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yes.
So I guess we'll just go ahead and go to Hadean and talk a little bit about how Vodou formed and these various different practices that kind of formed, these various different cultures, and kind of how they intersected. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure. So when the enslaved people were first brought to Haiti, unlike how the English and the Americans interacted with their slaves, they didn't care what language they spoke, more so that they just did whatever they were supposed to do. And so the different ethnic groups kind of stayed together, right? So if you spoke, Twi or Fawn or whatever, you'd hang out with those people that speak the same language. And so at first Vodou was segmented. There'd be these people from Dahomey, they do the Dahomey right. These people from over here, they do this Congolese stuff. It wasn't until around we'll say probably the 1900s, that people start to go, become more urbanized, right? Going to the city looking for opportunities. And that's when we see the Asogwe tradition, which is the tradition of Vodou that I belong to, really form. And that's what makes it different than all the rest, is that it is a integration of all of these different nations in order of who came first subsequently and then after. And so it's unique in that it gives everybody a place to sit at the table, and it's not just in this town we do just this Nago stuff, or in this town we just do this other stuff, right? And there are so many different ways that Vodou is interacted with in Haiti, and so it's to say there are places that they might have had one particular rite, but a family might have their own relationship with these separate divinities that are not like these other ones over here. And so, it's always been very varied, and it still remains very varied as well. And so, as far as anthropologists go, it's easy to get to Port-au-Prince, and it's very hard to get anywhere else thereafter, because before, there's a lot of airports, and before there really isn't that much of a roadway or a road system. So it's hard to travel places. So you really only hear about what's happening in Port-au-Prince as far as Vodou goes, which is how the Asogwe tradition kind of usurped all of the rest of these different various traditions that exist.
Did it kind of take it under its umbrella, and did it kind of combine everything, or what?
Yeah, it was very much they wanted a space that everybody could go to, and they could get the kind of sustenance that they needed, right? So you'll see like it's got like whereas some of the nations that are more individualized, like like the Laku stuff, like where it's like, well, this people just do this thing, they might have a very particular spirit or a very particular way that the spirit manifests or they serve it. But like you'll see in the Sogwe tradition, it's kind of like those things they're present there, but it's like the greatest hits of, if you will, So it sought to do two things really. It sought to create a space that people could all go to and receive spiritual sustenance from, and it also sought to create a fraternal order where people could interact, but like with boundaries, like where before there was the major tradition or way of interacting was it's called the Makut lineage, right? And the Makut means a bag, and that's and basically the people that would be part of that lineage, they carry everything they need in their bag. And they were like kind of like door-to-door insurance salesmen, where they hear like, oh, so-and-so's sick at this house, so you go to that house and you offer your services. But the thing with Makuts, though, they don't have they don't have allegiance to one another for anything. So like they'll try to like get other people's work or like start entering into people's maybe area of their, where they control their spot, if you will. And so the Asogwe tradition sought to kind of end that kind of like competition and competitive nature, and just kind of treat everybody like if you're in Asogwe, we'll like help you and you'll help us, and we'll take care of each other and kind of build each other up.
It was like a reciprocity thing then, I suppose.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and it's just a really it's a really powerful thing, because when you think about one of the things that people think kind of get mixed up with Haiti and its history is like the revolution wasn't simply just between just like the enslaved people and these French people, but it was all these different nations and all these different ideas and this baggage that they're carrying from these particular different places that maybe didn't like each other, didn't have the best relationships. And for them to all kind of figure their shit out so that they can sit at the same table is like pretty tremendous. But it's like there's like a consistent theme throughout all of the diaspora, where it's like the like some like anthropologists call it the Jeje Nago Pact, where it's like the Jeje are the people from Dahomey, and the Nago are like the Yoruba Oyo people, and it's this kind of like thing that happens because they weren't very good friends, but they lived in each other's spaces, and they wherever like they both showed up, they both kind of made the agreement that like, yeah, our stuff is the same as your stuff, it's just different names. And like that's a huge thing, I mean, like, some sects of Christianity can't even do that, so it's like
it's always good when people come together and do that, rather than it just being ascribed. For instance, like the Romans conquering somebody saying, no, that's not Odin, that's Mercury, or like doing something like that. But when everybody agrees on it and like a united sense of reciprocity and community, then that feels like a more healthy spiritual transition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so I guess we should dive into some of the main. Perhaps we can dive into some of the Loa that you work with, or some of the main ones, however you want to go about it. But we can start with the Rada, basically some of the Rada that you want to talk about, and some that maybe you work with.
Yeah, sure. I think one that is really important for people, especially if you're not in it, but you want to like kind of be about Vodou or try it out, would be first Dambala. Dambala and Anaida Wedo. Like if you like are looking about them and reading at them, that's like it may seem like, oh, there's maybe not much here, because it's like I remember being very confused by the role of Dambala in the very beginning. But it's like Dambala is like the closest thing to God or whatever the supreme being that you can get to. And Dambala is responsible with Aida Wedo, responsible for the ability to live. The ability to be born and to exist as a physical being on the planet. Dambala, if you don't know who your head is, right, who rules your head, what spirit walks with you, you can always go to Dambala for anything, because that's who's responsible for you until you know who's walking with you. And so, like, Dambala, like, you don't want to ask him to do like, weird stuff. You want to just ask for stuff that's good for you, good for your life, stuff that's going to benefit you. If you have problems, you can take them to him. It's some people, like, they get kind of like stuck on the idea, like, if you're not initiated, you can't approach them. But like, how else do you approach them? It's like if you're just trying out, because like the Loa, most of the Loa understand your heart, where you're coming from, and so it's like like an earnest prayer, a glass of water, a candle. That's like everything, So it's like Dambala. That's who you want to talk to if you don't know who he is.
Do you feel like they can like see through us in a way where like because I've also felt that way too, because I've met a lot of people say you have to be initiated, but then with a lot of other traditions and I maybe this one as well, if you do come with sincerity and honesty, it's not necessarily that a spirit or a god is going to reject you. Like it's they can see through us in a way. So I mean, do you felt like that's pretty accurate for some of these Loa?
Yeah, absolutely. There were times when, there were times when people are telling me, oh, you can't talk to this one. And I was like, well, I did. And, it's like, oh, and here I am. But like, this lady one time at the spiritual party, just before the concert the first time, she leaned over to me and she said, not everybody has Kanzo. Not everyone in Haiti goes to Kanzo. There's some people that are just born with spirits, and then they just do whatever they're supposed to do, and those words stuck with me, because it's like, there are tons of people out there that I know that have very legitimate relationships with the Loa that people say that they shouldn't have, but they do, and it's because the Loa are real, right? Because they're real, because they're a thing that can interact with us. They can find us, they can meet us where we're at, and then eventually get us to where they want us to be or need us to be in order to do whatever we're supposed to do with them on a bigger scale.
So does it feel more like a relationship than ceremonial magic? Because in a lot of ceremonial magic, you have to do everything just right. But it sounds like you're describing more of like a personal relationship with these Loa, rather than something that's where like if you don't do everything just right, then you're not going to be able to make contact. Is that the case?
Yeah, a lot of it really is your relationship to them. It's like, I know, like, just from like the feeling in the space, like how when like you hear someone's footsteps, you're like, oh, that's so and so, right? Like, I know when the ball is showing up. I know when that's Legba, and like my relationships have evolved and changed so dramatically over the years with them. I too, like, there's sometimes even like when I'm doing a reading for someone, like I'll be like doing the thing, all of a sudden I see like, oh, that was when I had this altar for so and so, like, however many years ago, and then it having some relationship to the actual reading, but it's because it's like there's this concept of Vodou with the mirror, right? Where the mirror is like, I'm looking at you, looking at me, but I'm also looking at myself, and it's like there isn't a person or a place that someone's been that I probably haven't been or have been very close to, so it's like easy to kind of relate in this way, and so that's kind of how I see, like, my relationship with whatever spirit, maybe whatever, but I can recognize when someone else has, is getting there or has that thing, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, because it definitely feels like we exist on multiple planes at once. So whereas our material bodies or whatever might not be interacting, but we're interacting with these spirits and each other on another plane that a lot of us can just naturally feel. When I do a lot of graveyard work, for instance, I go to graveyards so much that I call one of them my main office and then my other office. But when I go there, when I interact with the energies, it's a completely different language of energies than people are used to working with, and it even on just like a basic level, I never get bored in a graveyard, but a lot of people just go and they just see like stones and they don't, like, there's like nothing there. But when you're operating on another level and when you're used to these energies, it's almost like it's a constant exchange, and it's a lot of the time you don't even have to say anything, you just have to reach out with your energy from various parts of your body into the ground, what have you. But does that kind of coalesce with some of the practices that you do, as far as like the way you work with energy with these Loa and things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like one of the things that I recommend too is like, the Loa aren't going to come in your house. They don't live in your house. They don't live at an altar. They live outside, and so it's like, when I go, it's like when I go to, I used to live near Niagara Falls, right? And that's where it has like a lot of Damballa vibes for me there in that space. And so like, when I would go there, you feel like the kind of like that presence of something, you know what I mean? Even whether it's the noise that's keying you after that, or like the smell of the water or whatever, but like different biospheres that I've existed in, you feel like you can see if you are ready to tap into that stuff, you can feel and see and experience like all of these things here. You can find the channels that you're supposed to operate in and work with for those Loa,
Yeah, totally. So you did mention also spirit, like head spirits. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit more, because I know a bit about that, but I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of good information on as far as like the spirit of your head, or the spirits of your head, something like that.
Yeah. So the Metet is like it's part of your soul. Like this in Vodou, the soul is comprised of like seven pieces, right? And one of these pieces is the separate entity, right? That's the Metet. And the Metet is like the Loa that you came to Earth with you had an agreement. Your agreement is like, whatever you were trying to do when you were incarnating on Earth, they know what you're trying to accomplish. They have like the roadmap, but like, they're not driving, you're driving, And so it's like, now depending on the different school of thought, like I come from the idea that our like the head is like, divided into like kind of like four pieces, if you will, where you gotta like, you have this kind of constellation of Loa that kind of like are moving around you. You'll have always your Metet is your Metet, but you might have a Loa that might be more important at this part of your journey, or one that all of a sudden kind of steps up into that position. And so it's like you're kind of like a unique manifestation of these beings, because it's a part of you. Therefore, it's like you are also part of it. So it's like because kind of like the purpose of like initiating, which is really how you find out your Metet. There's not a reading you can do. Like in a reading, I can maybe tell like, oh, maybe this was probably so and so's, but we'll never know until it's time to do the actual ceremony. But it's like, you can. Some people just have that like, they have that strong feeling, like, because your head always knows. Your head at least has a good idea. So it's like always why I ask someone in the ceremony, it's like, when it's time to do that thing, like, who do you think it is, right? Because the idea is like, they probably know. The head knows. It's like, because it's like, then there's the times when it makes kind of like a person might identify with something that they wish they were like, but they're really not. It's like some people, they always want like the scary, fiery guys, right? But sometimes those people really, they have the nice ones, right? They have the ones that are really chill and really relaxed, and that's okay, because not everyone needs to, to have that kind of stuff. I've seen when people make the decision of like, because we have like you can tell when if someone's head is like, oh, let's say they're a very aggressive person, and they have, let's say they're a lady, let's say we see Danto with them, right? Well, like, they're already very Danto-like anyhow, so we don't want to like just double them up on that. We want to balance that out. And so it's like why we're with the Metet, that's the Loa of the head, but there's the Loa of the shoulder, there's the eyes, the tongue, the heart, the hands, the feet. And so it's like there's these different constellation of your body that these different Loa have relationships to. So it's like when you understand how a person's like trajectory is, and you understand like where like what they're kind of trying to accomplish, the Loa that are walking with them, it can be kind of easy to tell. Sorry, I'm getting kind of like.
It totally makes sense. Well, so it almost sounds like the different Loa of the various parts of the body are at the gateways that are chakras around our body, and the chakras are kind of the gateways, and then you have a Loa at each of those gateways. Is that a good way to understand it, or is it different than that?
I never really considered it like that, but it sounds very much like how I understand it, where it's like, you have, these are like the kind of like essential parts of your body, like where your head is, where your destiny is, your shoulders, what supports your head, your hands are how you, move around in that thing, and your eyes are how you see, your tongue is how you make things happen, or, so it's like, it makes sense. And I think though, that's like, the other part of it is like, there's a functionality to each one of them, it's like the Loa of the ear, or the eye rather, that might be how you see, because like there's different spiritual gifts that you can come into during your process through Vodou, where it's like some people do divination very well, some people they mount spirits very well, some people they kind of we have the thing called connaissance, which is like when people kind of extemporaneously receive information. It's like they didn't know it beforehand, no one told them, it's just something that's like, oh, here it is.